Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is the Laredo Independent School Board of Trustees Business and Support Services Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, June the 2nd, 5:32 p.m., more or less.
Where's mine?
We're meeting at the Amber Year Boardroom, 1620 Houston. Roll call, Mr. Garza.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jesus Martinez,
Present.
Mr. Jose Valdez, Mr. Ricardo Garza, present. Mr. Hector Noyola. Here. Dr. Celia May Moreno.
Present.
Mr. Hector Garcia.
Present.
Mr. Sheriff Perez.
Okay. You'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Nelson, item 1.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, Mr. Martinez, board members, colleagues, and members of the public. I will begin with item number 1, discussion and presentation to approve and/or ratify the monthly disbursements for April 2015. Our total cash disbursements were recorded at $21.1 million, of which 13.9 was used to pay payroll and payroll costs, and 7.1 million for the payment of goods and services. May I proceed, Mr. Martinez?
Yes, next item, please.
Next, we have the highlights of unaudited financial statements. We're trying out something new right now. I will be driving the presentation in your laptop.
That's
And
cool.
it does
That's the
have-
first one, right? That's
Yes.
What happened?
You did this?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what,
We'll see how this
Good.
works. So let me zoom. There is
need
a
to make it
delay,
bigger
but
so
I
you can
can
see
see
it.
on the image in the back where we at. So I'll scroll down to the under gifts and bequests.
huh?
There it is. We have donations for the month of April 2015, $12,283. The fiscal year to date donations, $125,658. Under our revenues, month to month, we recorded $2.2 million, which is $330,000 less when compared to the same period last year. And under the year-to-date amounts, we recorded $136.8 million, which is 3% or $3.8 million more when compared to the same period last year. Next, under our tax collection summary, the September to April collections, $26.3 million, which is 90% of our budgeted amount of $28.9 million. And as we scroll down, we have the collections for October to April, $26.2 million, which is 89% of the adjusted opening levy of $29.4 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, to blow it up.
Yes, we're not able to expand it
Not
to
yet?
full screen.
Okay.
Not yet, right.
Next item.
Under our expenditures by object, the month-to-month comparison for April 2015, we spent $17.3 million, which is 8% or $1.3 million more when compared to April 2014. And under the fiscal year-to-date comparison, we recorded $133 million, or 4%, $4.6 million more when compared to the same period last year. Next, we have expenditures, those same expenditures, but we are showing them by function. Our greatest expenditure is in instruction, $85.2 million, which is 64% of the total expenditures, followed by plant maintenance and operations in the amount of $12.8 million, which is about 10% of total expenditures. Under other financing sources and uses, We spent $1.8 million in April 2015. Compared to last year, we spent 3.6, which is a decrease of $1.8 million. Next, we have the administrative cost ratio. The standard ratio is at 11.05%. Our amended budget stands at 7.86%, while our fiscal year-to-date ratio stands at 6.05%. Here we have the summary for the general operating fund, which is Fund 199, the time-lapsed 67%, which is used as a tool to measure our performance. Again, revenues, $136.8 million, which is 70% of the amended budget amount. And expenditures, we have $133 million with encumbrances of 5.1. If we add those amounts, we come out with 71% of the amended budget. Here we have the Child Nutrition Program, Fund 101. Revenues, $15.1 million, which is 81% of the budget. And we have expenditures of $13.3 million and encumbrances of $3.9 million. We add those, the sum of those two amounts result in 78% of the amended budget.
Mr. Ayala, in that account, where do we need to be there? Because we've already we got twice penalized, or not penalized, but almost.
We didn't get penalized.
Not penalized, but.
Yes, they required us to hold only 3 months
Right.
in fund balance of operational costs. Today, as a matter of fact, we did have a training, and there's no penalty for non-compliance. As long as we disclose and as long as we request a plan with the Texas Department of Agriculture, we are going to be okay.
We're okay? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have the E-rate fund, 180. Revenue, $684,000, which is 124% of the amended budgeted amount. And we have expenditures of $602,000 and encumbrances of 1.5 that make up 37% of the amended budget. Next, we have Athletics Fund, Fund 181. Total revenues, $195,000, which is 96% of the amended budget. And we have expenditures of $917,000 and open encumbrances of $147,000. If we add those two amounts, we come out with 80% of the amended budget. Under our debt service fund, total revenues, $26.1 million, which is 105% of our projected revenues of $24.6 million. And we have expenditures of $5.4 million, which is 21% of the amended budget expenditures. Here we have our health insurance program. Cash received from users, $1.5 million. Cash payment for insurance claims and fees, $1 million. The net cash provided by operating activities, $502,000. So we get that amount, we add it to the cash and cash equivalents at the beginning of the month. We end up with $6.9 million at the end of April 30th, 2015. Next, we have the special revenue fund balances. We do have the Director of Federal Programs here, if you want to discuss any of the funds. And now I get to scroll. There's one, and then in the bottom,
Sorry. Yes, sir.
We'll roll. Everything will roll.
The only ones that will not roll forward, I understand the question now, will be the Title I School Improvement Grant Funds, but the principals have submitted their plans to Ms. Ramirez, Most of those funds will be used for supplemental summer programs, as well as some staff development in the summer. Those will end September 30th, and there's no roll forward on that. What the state is going to be doing is they are relooking at how to, one, first of all, exit existing focus schools from being focused, and then come January, more than likely, they will come out with a new list of focus and priority schools at that time, and then reissue the 1003 grants at that point in time. Yes, sir. No, sir. The Title I NCLB Consolidated Grant, the deadline for us to submit is July 1 because we have 12-month employees on that grant. The application will open actually this Friday by TEA. That gives us 1 month to prepare the application, submit it, and once we submit it and we get our NOGA, we're ready to spend the money. Usually, we get the NOGA latter part of July, early August. The thing that happens on September 1 is that's when internally we roll over into the new system and the budgets have to be set up at that point in time. That is sometimes where the delay occurs.
Does that have anything to do with, that particular fund doesn't do anything with summer school teachers, right?
We have some summer programs attached to Title I, but not, in mass. I mean, there are.
That comes
3 or
from
4.
the individual school budget.
No, sir. What we do is we pull some funding that has not been spent from different areas, and we put it into our summer school programs at that point in time.
Okay, is there any school budget that belongs, any individual budget that belongs to that school that's used for summer school teachers?
It's, in other words,
And,
if they
yeah,
have some, let's say, contracted services that haven't been used and they haven't submitted a plan for those, we pull from there. We would pull maybe from state compensatory. Each program is funded differently, so depending on the funding source, we go and look at where the revenues are, and we consolidate the funds into summer school.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yes, sir.
All right.
In the Fund 224, the one for special ed, right? We have a balance there of $1.5 million. What can we use that money for?
That balance rolled forward into the new budget year. I believe right now, special ed has an overload in contractual services, and that's what the majority of the funds were used for.
There's no money left anywhere where we can get reading into this to help in special ed, because I think that is the most, if you saw your scores, that's where you need your help. If they can't read, then everything else is irrelevant. And I think if we can find money within the special ed, can we do that?
Then we need to redirect their program.
I would say we can look and see if we can beef up special ed reading department to help them out as much as they can. Because if you look at your numbers, that's your main, yeah.
Because they have the teachers helping them. And then when they learn by themselves.
So are we gonna follow up with those principals to make sure that they are spending the money? Because they tell you they are and then they don't, and we all just send it back and nobody's,
Actually, I've pulled the budgets as of yesterday, and most of them have already either encumbered some of it, and some of them, like I said, are just waiting for some additional summer programs for extra duty pay. So yes, we are following up. I know Ms. Ramirez has, and I personally
how about this Educator Excellence Grant? $9 million, $900,000.
We're sending it back.
We're sending it back? AP incentives, we don't do AP? Is that why we don't spend that money? AP incentives. There's a grant here that says AP incentives.
Those are leftover funds from the past years. The one that monitors that fund, those funds is Ms. Rodriguez. Those could be used for AP courses, anything to do with those needs of those students taking advanced courses.
So for the second year, we will simply not spend them,
We
50,000.
will roll them forward. Those are ours. They're in fund balance. We're not going to lose those.
There's a number of them here that are just there.
Next item.
Last, we have a summary of the construction funds. Any questions on these? May I proceed, Mr. Martinez?
Go ahead.
Item 3, discussion and presentation on the following budget amendments. BA 1415-36, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $347,720 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories. Item 3B, BA 1415-37, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $108,560 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories in the capital improvement plan funds contingent on the approval on the changes to the designated amounts in the LLF and LLE categories. We do have a footer on those changes, recommended changes. Item 3C, BA 1415-38, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $17,567 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories from the Board of Trustees discretionary funds. Item 4, discussion and presentation to approve and award the following bids, proposals, quotations, and contracts. 4A, this is a renewal, RFP 14-023, accredited curriculum software. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to Odyssey Ware for an estimated amount of $80,000. Item 4B, this is also a renewal, RFQ 2014-008, Special Education Legal Services. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to J. Cruz and Associates for an estimated amount of $30,000. Item 4C, this is a renewal, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program, CNP-STC number 12-04-21. This is for janitorial supplies, paper and plastic products. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contracts to Devon Distributing and Packaging, Labatt Food Service, Cisco Central Texas, Gulf Coast Paper Company, M&Q Packaging, Oliver Packaging and Equipment, and Econopack, Inc., for an estimated amount of $850,000.
Quick question, what is the thickness of the plastic that we're buying? Do you have any idea?
What, I'm sorry?
The
Gauge.
The rate?
Gauge.
what's the, what?
The rating?
Gauge.
The gauge of the plastic that we're buying. I only say that
The
because
gauge of the paper.
I've seen some of at schools that have said that the gauge that they're getting, whatever they're getting, they're putting stuff in there, they move the bag, they break. So are we buying inexpensive
No,
that,
the quality.
the quality of that, that's the gauge of it.
Do you know?
Do you have an idea?
Can we prepare?
Can you bring it back to us
right.
just to see if it's something that, because we're using
think-
3 or 4 bags for every one bag because they don't hold what they should hold.
I think it's a 33,
Oh, okay.
.33, I think. is
Yeah,
the-
just check into it, please.
So can I go back to 4A, and do we have, and I'm not sure if we asked at the CNI, how many kids end up annually on credit recovery using this, the Odyssey system?
We can provide that report, Trustee Garza. It really changes each year. It changes from the way we're supposed to do it is 6 weeks to 6 weeks. The way we do it is semester to semester. So, you know, there's sometimes kids miss a credit here, and we allow them to go to Odyssey Ware and get their credit recovered.
We
But
have, by law, we have to have that available for them.
Yeah, they got to seat time. Yeah,
Okay.
for every minute they miss, they got to make that up.
Right.
We can
Okay.
give you a little overview of how it's been from year to year.
All right.
We do have a usage report, Dr. Nelson, attached. Would you like for me to bring it up?
That's fine too. However you want to do it. I'm trying
But-
I'm trying to click on it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. If you,
I think I'm the one that,
yeah, I see it here.
that's
Pull it up.
driving your monitor.
That's
There
a
it
lot.
is.
Well, that's actually I'm looking at it too. Odyssey Ware credits earn report, but I think we can provide a little more detail.
More detail?
than that. So that gets you started, Mr.
All right, yeah,
Garza.
that's perfect. I just
how-
want to make sure that it's being taken advantage of, that it is being used.
Oh, man.
The question is, how does this 215 report compare to 214
That is it.
and even 213? I think we can find that if we try.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll provide that.
All right.
Okay. Item 4D, this is a renewal, RFP 14-014, painting projects. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Gerardo's Painting for an estimated amount of $100,000. Item 4E, renewal, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program. This is the South Texas Co-op, number 13-03-11. Bread Products, the Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Flowers Baking Company for an estimated amount of $124,248. Item 4F, renewal, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program. This is the same co-op, number 14-03018. This is for dairy and juice products. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Hygeia Oak Farms Dairy for an estimated amount of $3 million. 4G, again, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program, number 15-11-04, United States Department of Agriculture Processed Foods. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding contracts to Advance Pierre Foods, Alpha Foods, Donley Farms, Pilgrim's Pride, Genio Turkey Store, MCI, Rodriguez Foods, and Tyson Prepared Foods for an estimated amount of $1,110,470. 4H, Texas Association of School Board by Board. This is for dismantle and removal of portables. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Mott Space for an estimated amount of $322,734.
Who are they?
Mott
They're the
Space
company-
is a vendor from San Antonio.
They're the company that put the portables down.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Now, take me through that. There's a three-step process here. They dismantle, we sell, those buildings are already sold, right?
Not all of them,
7 of them.
right.
There was 13 at Nixon. The list that Fixed Assets gave us right now, so all
Right.
of them are sold. They
Those
did-
were ours, not the whole portable city was ours.
Okay, so they dismantle them, but those aren't sold yet.
Right, the 7 from Nixon that are ours we're recommending that they be sold.
Yeah, that's already been part of the process. So these are not sold
They
yet.
belong to
Right.
Mott Space.
They
Oh,
belong
Mod
to
Space is gonna take them back.
Right.
Okay, all right. So then after everything is done, then the contract for removal of the sidewalks, plumbing, all that kind of stuff takes into effect. They remove everything out of the way, right?
That happened first.
Oh, it has to be done first?
Move the sidewalks and the plumbing first, and then the last thing is left is to take the portables out of there.
It's the opposite, okay, all right.
But all of it will be done in June.
Item 4I, TASB Buy Board Co-op number 430-13. This is for vehicles. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding contracts to Chastang Ford and Gunn Chevrolet for an estimated amount of $93,153, which represents the best value to the district. We also recommend that the board rescind its prior approval of Caldwell Country Chevrolet in the amount of $91,687 because the vendor could not deliver the vehicles by the 8/31 deadline.
Have we ever had, are we replacing vehicles with that, or are we, these are, we've never had, well, these are going to fixed assets, right?
For
Operations, I'm sorry.
operations.
So we're replacing, or are we
For fixed
adding?
assets, no, we're replacing.
Replacing.
We have very old
Okay.
vehicles, right?
Okay, very good.
Item 4J, this is a bid number 15-017, outdoor restrooms. The evaluation committee recommends awarding a contract to American Contracting for an estimated amount of $42,500.
Is this a new trend where we award a contract with the restrooms and then the plumbing separately instead of doing it together?
Well, it depends. I believe this time it was to facilitate the construction of them, right? Is that what-
Go ahead.
Just to answer that, Mr. Noyola, members of the board, we currently have that RFP in place. We used to have in the past one for minor construction. However, we don't have it anymore. So we're taking advantage of the fact that we have an RFP already that was evaluated. You know, we get the responses from different plumbing companies, and we're trying to just utilize what we have. Again, that's another option. Based on the fact that the plumbing company should start prior to the construction, we think that it's a better way to expedite the project and make sure that they finish on time before August the 30th. Basketball courts are not built right now. Basketball courts? Oh. The basketball courts. Oh, those are existing.
Yeah, they're done.
Yeah, what they are building right now is it's a roof on top of the basketball courts.
You know, the other answer to your question, very respectfully, Mr. Noel, because I think you're asking the right question. But for me, and I don't know as much about construction as some of the trustees, I recognize that. But I wouldn't really want the same person that's building the restrooms, the facility. I don't think that's the same person that does the plumbing in the ground. No. I think that's two separate
They subcontract.
experts. Yeah, I don't want the plumber to be a builder. I want the plumber to be a plumber. That's just thinking about your question about maybe getting a better value for our buck if we did them together. I'd be uncomfortable with that.
We're acting as a general contractor, hiring the subs to do that.
So basically, we're the general contractor hiring our own subs.
The only thing that I would say and maybe for next year we start looking at that when you all are doing the evaluation or when we're going out for bids on anything that we do, if we had prior work with them and they did bad work for us or didn't turn in a project on time, that there'd be a penalty within that clause, or that they're not allowed to bid on it because the work that they did prior to turning in a project wrong, not finishing on time, whatever the situation is that. So we don't work with. So we see some people that we've had do bad work, and then we still hire them for something else, and still hire them for something else. It's just doesn't make sense.
Yes, sir.
Are we noticing a trend, I mean, as far as the same people are bidding these jobs over and over again?
It's all about the size of the projects, but small scale projects, they are typically the
Well,
same.
I mean, when we put together the canopies over 3-4 schools, that as we're gonna come and see later on, you know, my point is that, are we continuously seeing the same people bidding these projects? And are we getting, what I don't want to happen, and what I see sometimes happening, is that sometimes they lag behind. And I agree with Mr. Garcia and Mr. Noyola, in the sense that our options are diminishing, that even though they weren't really we gave them the job obviously because it's the best value for the district, but we're having problems with them finishing, or we're finishing on time, or we're constantly having to be on top of them to get it done and things like that. I'm not sure we need to start looking at other options where we have to act. I mean, is it really worth saying that we can't hire a contractor and say maybe we should be the general contractor and put all the subs together like we're doing with Santo Niño in respect to time and finishing a quality job?
I agree with you. I
I
understand.
mean,
what
there's
you're
going to
saying.
be, I know there's going to be some situations. I know your department will be overwhelmed by doing something like that, but it might be something that we have to do to send the message out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the other thing that I just feel compelled to say in the interest of transparency, I mean, same names keep, I'm not speaking for Mr. Noyola, we hadn't talked about this, but the same names keep coming up. And so I'm thinking about when we did environmental testing,
Right.
and so then we end up having this conversation at the board level about how are we selecting. So I understand there's a procurement process. I respect the process. I'm just saying that if the same, I don't want to say the company, but their name keeps coming up, and I just feel like
I
we
don't
want.
mind if, in my opinion, I don't mind if it's the same company. It's like Ayala has a company, but she's turning in her job on time, on budget,
Yeah.
with professional. Then you know what? I don't mind giving it because
Right.
it's a work. But those that are keep seeing the name that are not delivering to us, and we keep giving them the job. That's what I don't understand.
I agree with you. What happens though is that if we keep giving it to a company, then I hear what you're saying. I happen to agree with you. If the company's taking care of business on time and under
Right.
budget, but then what'll come up, usually from another trustee, is why is this company getting all the work? And the way they'll get it is there'll be another company that says they keep being denied. Now, if they're being denied because they had previous work and their work wasn't on time, it wasn't under
That's fine.
budget, I understand that. But if they've never had work with the district and someone else continues to get work, I just want us to be sure that we
Or-
can clearly show how we picked our people.
Our scoring system should take care of those matters, because once we, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a question in there that you get points for quality work and on time and all that kind of stuff. If you didn't use the appropriate number, if it's 1 to 10, and at the beginning, the first job that you got was a 10 because you did a good job, this time around, you didn't do such a good job, you get a 7, you get a 6 or a 5, and that's how the integrity of the system stays in place. Am I
Sure.
correct with that?
That's correct, yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
so that's how the other companies keep coming in. But by the same token, they don't do a good job the next
Yeah.
time around, and it just keeps on going.
Right, balance
My
is-
question is that there's only about 4 or 5 companies in town that are bonded, right? And that's what we have to look, by law, we have to look at that.
Wow.
So, and it's kind of frustrating, I know, for everybody, but, I'm not sure what the answer is right now, but we really need to be looking at other ways of maybe finding a
Solution.
solution for this.
Thank you.
Item 4K, RFP number 14-041, subcontractors for plumbing services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Arellanos Plumbing for an estimated amount of $65,000. Item 4L, TASB Byboard Co-op number 423-13, Santo Niño Playground Shade Canopy. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Playwell Group for an estimated amount of $33,409. 4M, RFP number 15-016, recording studio equipment. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Vintage King Audio for an estimated amount of $60,000. 4N, TASB Byboard Co-op number 414-12. This is for outdoor furniture. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to JR Inc. for an estimated amount of $37,292. Item 4O, RFP number 15-003, digital scanning and shredding services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to DocuLinks for an estimated amount of $27,000.
I did have a question on 4I.
For what?
4I, why is it that we're gonna pay more so that it can be delivered before 8/31/2015?
Right, we had to go out and look for other vehicles because the original bid couldn't be honored. The production
Right.
was,
But this says that,
right.
in
We're
other words, what
using-
happens if they deliver later? Why can't we wait for it and
Right,
save
because we're
$2,000?
we're using capital improvement funds that expired 8/31. We don't roll those funds, so we try to utilize before that deadline. That
That's our
or
own-
substitute the project, yes.
But that's our own,
Yes, ma'am.
so we're paying $2,000 more?
Yes, we are.
I don't know. Y'all tell me if that's.
You know, I'm gonna
We
look
pay
into that, and,
$2,000
you know, I don't
from our own
mind.
pocket more for a vehicle, just.
Well, we really, if you allow me, I will go look into that. And we really
Okay.
have a couple of other issues as well, where the budget ends, our finance department, it's, you know, respectfully, I think it's an internal
It's
process.
internal,
Yes.
And so
it is
perhaps
internal.
we can, let me work on that, and we'll have a conversation about the purchases of the vehicles and those canopies. There's a couple of other projects that we're kind of saying they need to be done by August 31st, or we'll lose it. But if that's internal, we'll look at that.
Next.
I don't know where I left.
We were on P.
Right. 4P, is it on your screen? Yes?
Yes.
The Texas Department of Information, DIR TSO-2676, Threat Management Solution Hardware and Support. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Presidio Network Solutions Group for an estimated amount of $170,500.
What kind of a, what is this?
This is this is to safeguard the district's computers and networks against malicious online threats.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't read that side. Thank you.
Item 4Q, RFP 15-013, instructional projectors and related services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Summit Integration Systems for an estimated amount of $3,945,996.
Is that including, I see the schools that it's going to affect. These projectors are, the location of them, are some of them going to be at the gyms? Is this yours, Mr. Minot? Yeah. So then, the ones we had talked about that we were going to be installing last year, this is part of this process?
Good evening, members of the board. The item is going to be for classroom projectors. However, through the scope of this project, the vendor is going to address rooms like the library and cafeteria, which also have the same dynamic as a gym.
Right.
So we can, you know, if the funding allows, we can definitely address the gym and the library. Those
No,
are special setups because they need screens that drop automatically. and
Right,
that
no,
type of stuff.
it was the cafeteria, you're right, because we were saying that there's some times where you can have parents in there and they can't see from the back.
Right.
And a screen like that and a projector like that would really help because they're in the back and they can see. So the cafeteria is fine if that's the intention.
Right,
The
that's the
gym, we can
intent.
look at another angle, we can look at something else.
Yeah, the gym's a little more complicated because of the exposure of the equipment to flying balls and stuff.
Right,
It's really
right.
hard to safeguard it, but cafeterias and libraries is more likely
Yeah,
where
just so
you'll see
long
it.
as they have a place that they can use that or take parents and stuff like that too.
Yes.
Okay.
Where's the funding coming from?
The funding for the projectors are going to come out of local accounts and funding as we have them throughout the next 3 years. So from our computer account, which is what we use to buy our district computers, which is about 1.2 million, any excess from that or any excess funds that we may identify throughout the next 3 years, either through capital improvement or like we did this year. This year, the board approved some excess funds to be allocated to accelerate this that were the result of savings from our local budget. So this will be in place in the event that we find ourselves in that situation again, so we can quickly move forward and address these campuses, which are the remaining campuses that have not been done yet.
Can we monitor that teachers are using these?
We can't pull a report that'll show us like usage, like that'll tell us. We can do it. The projectors track the amount of hours that are on the lamp. We can do it sporadically, but I don't know that we can do it like as a
We can
group,
do it
like,
manually.
We would have to go projector by projector and
No, we
maybe-
can go teacher by teacher and ask for lesson plans that show that they're using the
Right.
projector.
Right, well,
So
you
the
know,
answer
through
to the question
walkthroughs,
is yes.
instructional walks, observations, we would hope that we would be identifying that. But the projectors do provide hours of usage on the device. We would have to pull it out one by one.
So is it possible that you would ask principals to let you know who is and who's not using them?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we do our walkthroughs in the classrooms, we make notes of those things because especially our instructional technology department, they're looking for evidence of technology integration in the classroom, and the projector is the first fundamental tool that a teacher would want to use to
And you still have
facilitate that.
training for those who may not know how to use them?
Correct. So part of the scope of this vendor's project is we're doing an entire campus all at one time. They're all getting the same unit. And upon completion, the vendor will deliver training to all the teachers on how to operate it and how to make it work. And so far, we've had really great results and good feedback.
Is there any grade levels that don't get them?
Our plan is to cover every classroom in the district as we have the funding.
So our pre-Ks have them?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The schools that have been done, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in all the classrooms.
I did make a note to myself to mention to you that as you replace some of those desktops, we have a lot of need for students to have availability of the computers for AR. I used to get a lot of complaints that they couldn't test in the classrooms because the computers weren't working.
Right, and that's part of our plan next year. We are replacing a lot of computers, and we're not disposing of them. The ones that are there now are about 4 or 5 years old. We're going to move those into the classrooms so that they can continue to do AR. So the libraries will get new ones, the labs will get new ones, and what's in the libraries and the labs now will be pushed to the classrooms, and the
Okay.
principal can tell us where they want them installed.
Okay.
May we proceed, Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead.
We have the next item is tax refunds. We recommend approval on items 5A through 5G. Are there any comments or questions from the trustees? If not, may we have permission to proceed?
Yes.
Item number 6 is update on preliminary spring testing results. Mr. President, members of the board, we actually every trustee that is here, very impressed that they all participated in the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. And so we really went over that in detail. We had all of our principals at our Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting under the leadership of our Chief Academic Officer. I know for a fact that we've been continuing to look at our data. The reason why we emphasize that this data is preliminary is because we're still working with the Regional Service Center to determine how the indexes and performance standards and all kind of acronyms from the state are to be interpreted. We'll get this data today. We've provided it to the board. Hundreds of our kids will be taking another assessment in 5th and 8th grade this summer, which is approximately 3 weeks away. And we'll get the results of that and communicate it in July. Then we'll have another update in August once we find out what we call the bottom 5% in the state. So we got a lot of work to do. The urgency is there. We're not satisfied. I really am the person mostly responsible for this. We're trying to spread the sense of, let me clarify. I am the person responsible for this in terms of conversations with the board. I'm just trying to share that responsibility. And I really want every classroom teacher to have the same sense of urgency that this board knows I have. And so we're working together on that. There are some things to celebrate. McDonald has improved double digits in every category. They will no longer be low performing. We were facing a reconstitution at that school, and we won't have to do that immediately. We're optimistically hopeful about Martin as well. We're waiting on the final rankings, but definitely evidence of improvement. For the records, elementary science is a focus area for us, along with secondary, our social studies, our U.S. history. These have had declines this year that makes us go back and evaluate our system. But there have been some campuses that have shown tremendous improvement. Tarver is one that comes to mind in science. So we have some best practices. We just one of the great, there's lots of excellent ideas that we've heard at our Curriculum and Instruction Committee, but one of the things I really took to heart is the idea of meeting a little more often and really hearing from our principals and our teacher leaders on ways that we can support them better. And so that's something we really want to do and facilitate that dialogue, not only with central office and campuses, but with the trustees and campuses as well. So any ideas are welcome. I know I speak for Mrs. Ramirez and myself that we're not satisfied about this. And we know that it needs a lot of work, but we do have a framework to build on, and we're confident we can do that. Any comments or
Yeah,
questions?
just one on, and I'm not, I know we can talk about this for the next 3 months, but one of the things that I've gotten today is I think we left a lot more questions unanswered than answered. There's a lot of confusion with some of the principals out there. They don't know what's going on. So it might be a good idea just to send a recap and say everything, we're going to talk about everything when the time comes. Just start looking at what you need to do first and figure out what we need to do, because some of them there was a lot of comments made last night. I don't think they could digest everything all in one sitting. But I foresee that that's going to be the trend for the rest of the summer, because I know you're still getting information as we speak, and you have to decipher that information and pass it on. But it might be a calming effect if an email is sent out and say, we know we didn't answer every question that you have out there. We're not going to resolve this overnight. Stand by, because I did get about 3 or 4 phone calls today regarding what's going to happen, and nothing's going to happen right now.
Well, the reason why they're worried is because there are some campuses that may not meet the expectations of the state.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you. We need to have more communication. We've actually talked about that. For the record, all of our magnet schools perform well. One of the things I took from yesterday is it seems logical that we would encourage more participation in our magnet schools. People who, campuses that, in my opinion, the campuses that are most in tune with their data, they know more about their school than central office, board of trustees, superintendent. That's just how they are about their data. We have others that are needing development, and we definitely want to support them better. So I appreciate people who have went to you acting confused. But we will continue this conversation and try to move forward with, Mr. Garcia says something that rings in my ears. It's child abuse for us to know that kids are not learning what they're supposed to learn, and we do nothing about it. So I've had that conversation with a host of administrators, and we will go campus by campus and make sure we monitor the data in a way that those kids deserve.
Dr. Nelson, I do believe you need to go campus by campus and talk about what worked and what didn't work.
Yes, ma'am.
At each campus, each principal can tell you some things that didn't, some things, not excuses, but what didn't work that they would do different.
We will do that before the end of July.
And can we have some kind of plan on what, I know you told me about that, but what plan we have for our 4th grade reading and writing, which is 75% and 77%, or 73 and 75% failed. I think that's reading and writing. Without reading and writing, it's like,
As
besides math, but reading
as a
and writing, 4th
district, we
grade
should have a whole list of initiatives
in place.
that
For
would
literacy and for writing.
would support. And I think I've shared some that I've seen from other districts. Yes.
And we've tried to do things like writing across the curriculum, and it's just a level of commitment to implement what this board's expecting. So we'll definitely go through that activity and make a report to the board in
Staff
July.
development for the writing teacher really
Content
makes a difference.
specific
You
development.
can see the difference in those students as the teachers grow and through staff development.
Yes, ma'am.
It just puts to thinking that, remember that a year ago, 2 years ago, when we cut reading, we said, is it going to affect us in a year or two? And the way it looked, it affected us by cutting all those reading teachers.
Sure.
That we were saying, let's try to find a different way. I know Dr. Nelson, you brought us some recommendations last year. You brought some with some more teachers, but I think that we need to get some more aboard, because that's where we're hurting, the reading.
No, we have 5 reading positions posted right now. So we're going
Can we
forward.
leave that as an open agenda item for every month? Instead of us calling it in, is it to discuss it, that it's there? that it's just, I mean, we don't have to call it in, that it's just an agenda item to discuss this. So
Well,
at
the way-
least, so at least, because a lot of times we don't discuss, we skip a month, and it just keeps it at the forefront. It just makes us discuss it whether we want to or not whether we want to or not, just so we can just have it up in the forefront of as one of the most important things to do.
We don't have a problem with that. We agree that it is probably the most important thing that this board and this leadership team is supposed to be monitoring. I think if you go back and look at our agendas, we're pretty regular in our reports. Now, spring testing results, very respectfully, Mr. Garza, that's the spring. But no, we'll do what we call a periodic assessment. I think we call them CBAs. And as soon as, that's at the end of the first 6 weeks. As soon as those finish, we present those results to the board. So yes, we can have some kind of assessment conversation regularly with this board. It's just not all about the spring. I mean, once we get the spring results, then it's like, okay, on to the next assessment. Or on, you know, but yes, we can definitely make it more of a priority.
Okay.
May I proceed, Mr. President?
Yes.
Item number 7 is discussion and update on the 2015-2016 superintendent goals and July formative evaluation of the superintendent. Mr. President, members of the board, attached to this agenda item is proposed superintendent goals for 2015-2016. They are based on the district goals that were approved by the board in May of 2015. According to our calendar of evaluating the superintendent's office, we would like to open up our window of one-on-one conversations from July 20th, and they would conclude on July 29th. And then we're asking to have we have a budget workshop scheduled for July 30th, and I'd like to ask that we have a special call meeting right before that workshop to ratify the formative evaluation of the superintendent. So Ms. Rodriguez and myself will hand out all the indicators and updates, and this is what we're asking to do for the formative.
Dr. Nelson, I don't think these goals will get us what we need. I mean, it's fine, we can live with them, but they're so vague that they're not aligned to any performance, they're not aligned to whatever it is we want happening at the schools. They're just extremely vague. To ensure that a curriculum monitoring plan is developed. Well, so is it a good one or a bad one? We don't even know.
I understand what you're
We'll
saying.
develop procedures to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers. Well, so how do we even know if they're highly qualified when we interview them? We need to develop interviewing skills.
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
mentioned that before. We still haven't even touched on that.
Well, I understand your point, and what I think we could do is, you know, the superintendent goals as presented tonight are really directly tied to the district goals that the board approved. Now, what I was planning to do.
But they're directly tied in a very vague way. That we don't get the results we want, and yet it doesn't appear in anybody's evaluation. And nobody's evaluation, I don't know, maybe the principals, but sure doesn't appear in anybody else's.
Okay. Well, we'll go back and try to add more specificity to them. That's all I can tell you. I mean, we provide indicators, 15 to 20 indicators for each goal. All of those are measurable.
They weren't distributed to us.
No, but that's not the process. The indicators are not part of the superintendent goals. The indicators are part of the evaluation process. So I understand what you're saying, and that was really, I don't know, we're just trying to follow a process.
Right. We are too. A process that'll give us results.
Well, I mean, so we're leaving all the evaluation processes under the superintendent to his discretion? Is that what we're saying? And then we are evaluating him under these goal
Right,
guidelines.
but these goals, there's no way you can say that we did or didn't do this.
Mhm.
You know, who's to say that the curriculum monitoring plan is developed or is not developed? I mean, you can develop one and that doesn't get you results.
Correct. Is it measurable?
And is it aligned to what we're asking, what
Right.
we're expecting, what we're looking for?
Okay. Well, let me go back and add the indicators. I think that'll bring a little more specificity to the objective.
I don't know if it's possible with the evaluation that we're able to see the evaluation of all the directors, to see what they're evaluated on and how they were evaluated.
Sure, we've done this with you in the past, and you
Did-
know, it's
I
a
don't know if
little
we can.
it's a little unorthodox,
Oh, okay. then
but I'm not.
But,
you know,
but
what happened last
Dr.
time.
Nelson, last year I mentioned the fact that their evaluation ought to be tied to performance too.
absolutely,
Was it done?
yes.
And clearly, objectively,
I'll be glad to provide you an update of
I
all
pulled my
this
question.
at our evaluation meeting.
We did. I did that last time, and I pulled it.
Any other comments or questions?
Is that the last item?
No, not even close.
Okay.
May we proceed? Item number 8 is discussion and presentation on the potential sale of portable buildings that are no longer useful to the district as per results of sealed bid number 15-015. Mr. President, members of the board, attached you have all of the supporting documentation submitted from our Office of Plant Facilities and Support Services in conjunction with our procurement department, where we're recommending different winners, so to speak, for 7 portables at Nixon, 2 from Lamar, and 2 at Fixed Assets. We have the information on the bids and the ones we're recommending for approval. Mr. Velasquez, do you have anything to add before? Go ahead.
Yeah, just to members of the board, Dr. Nelson, just to clarify that by doing this, I'm very proud of the work that we made combined between departments. We're saving close to $240,000, by selling these portables to outside entities and avoiding charges on transportation. So that's the good thing about this item.
Good.
Any other comments or questions on number 8?
No? Next item?
Item number 9 is discussion and presentation on the proposed amendments and proposed funding reallocations for the 2014-2015 Capital Improvement Plan. Mr. President, members of the board, we have a situation. I'm going to ask Mr. Velasquez to explain it. Ms. Rodriguez is going to give, really what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is take items number 9 and number 10 together. And I think it'll all make sense, if I may, Mr. President.
Yes.
Item number 10 for the record is discussion and presentation on proposed capital improvement plan projects for school year 2015-2016. Back to number 9. We're handing out a document. Let me finish, please. We're handing out a document. Do they have this? Okay, Ms. Rodriguez is handing you a document right now. It has orange highlights on it. And what it is it is a summary
where's my 5-year plan?
of projects. This is important. It's a summary of projects that we are recommending to add to the capital improvement plan using surplus monies. Is that correct, Mr. Velasquez?
That's correct.
And that's important because at our operations committee meeting this morning, it was presented as if this is confusing. But I think if you'll stay with us, you'll see why it's confusing, and I'm hoping it'll make a lot of sense. In conjunction to this, which I'm not sure if there's any questions about 14-15 first, I think it may help if we also, agenda item number 10 has a similar looking document, but it has no orange on it. Mrs. Rodriguez is handing it out right now. And it has blue and green, which summarize to $1.5 million in capital improvement items for 2015-2016. So it gets a little I agree, it was mentioned this morning. Mr. Garza brought up an excellent point this morning as well, that we've kind of, under our finance leadership, we've kind of loosely expanded the definition of capital improvement. And we've included things like buses, things like computers. And that's really so that we can plan. We know these are things that we need to plan for. So the most recent
Part of the problem is that we had a 5-year plan that separated those from equipment furniture and equipment, and now we've just thrown all of it together. It's really just a one-year plan. It's not, it doesn't show any planning for the next 5 years anymore. And they're no longer separated. They're all mixed in.
Well, Dr. Moreno, we have referred to this legal-sized document, which is
five-year plan.
we're currently going into year 3 of what we feel is a 5-year plan. One of the reasons why it's a little complex to understand is that, and I really feel strongly about this, is that we have been allowing campuses to make recommendations on adjustments to their priorities. We've brought all of those to the board, but someone may have said an air conditioning is a priority 1 year. They come back and say now they want a marquee. All of that has been approved through the board every time we've made a change to the capital improvement plan. But that's why it's hard to look at a 5-year plan, because some things were for year 5, they've been moved to year 2, and it's all been driven by the users, which is the campus principals.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just want to continue to see a 5-year plan. I want
Absolutely.
us to see us planning. We know that not everything can be funded in the current year, whatever the current year happens to be. So some things have to be 1 year, 2,
Planned
3,
for,
4 years
right.
ahead, right? And if we think 5 years is too far ahead and it ought to be 3 or 4, well, that's fine
Then
too.
move.
But definitely not getting back to every year, whoever shows up and wants something gets it, and nobody's really thinking ahead about the things that need to be done.
Now, for the record, I hear what you're saying, and it's all taken with and I know the intention. But if you look at the 5-year plan and you go to year 3, and you'll see $1.5 million in expenditures, and that's what we're recommending for this next year. So it's part of a plan. We didn't make the decisions on priorities. We went from the plan. We pulled it from the 5-year plan.
Well, and that's fine. I'm not saying that we've done anything. I'm just saying we need to always have
Refer
5
to the
years
5-year.
ahead. So what we have here is not the old plan, because the old plan didn't mix equipment with facilities, and this one is all mixed. Remember, we used to have, it was categories? Yes. It was equipment and furniture by itself, and it was
Mr. Velasquez?
And the
Improvements-
report can be extracted in many different ways. Right now, that's the master. So if you want separation by categories, that's something that very
Well-
easily we can
Well, Mr.
manipulate.
Velasquez, let me ask you a question. A lot of stuff that is added to this is stuff that should be part of you all's budget, not part of our 5-year plan, computers and all that. That's part of your budget of the money that you're getting. It shouldn't be coming out of, we were looking at other things that, you know what, it's hard to
Facilities.
get into a budget. Yeah. The budget that you all put in 5 years plus, you all are starting to stick in what you all want or what you think, we can't get it from a budget, so let's just throw it into, and try to get it from them. That's not, that wasn't what our plan was.
I hear what you're saying, but
Get me?
for the record, though, we did say, I mean, please clarify if no one remembers this, but we did say that buses purchases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we did
We
say
said
those
2
things,
every
but
year, I remember
Right,
that.
2 a year or something like that.
But it's, you have to look all over the place for it. What happened to a plan? You know, yes, of course, it can be sorted in, I know it's an Excel spreadsheet, but if it's a plan, then you've got all your facilities by themselves, your equipment, and you show where you're going and what you've done.
Okay, we can clean that up.
Well, I mean,
Definitely, be happy
now
to.
it makes sense because you did call this the master deal. I understand that.
Right.
I understand that. I just didn't want this
I
to
need to
become
study this.
a dumping ground for every little thing that's being.
We
brought by
denied
the
in the
district.
budget. Everything we denied said
Yeah.
no in the budget, we put it in the
So, yeah,
CIP.
it's right, it's
That's
right
what I'm
here. So then, I mean, what I was saying, what I meant earlier this morning was, yeah, this is capital improvements, the way the spirit of it was 2 years ago, then it should be on this only. And then we discuss this, a 5-year deal for this. And then, for, like you said, the buses, then we go over to transportation. There's a 5-year deal for transportation. And I'm thinking
Well,
that's.
we'll clean up 9 and 10 before we bring it next week.
I was gonna mention though, because if that's the case, then Mr. Manoa's $3 million deal on the projector should be here. Huh? See?
Yeah, it is
So-
there.
Yeah, but this is not an original, because the original wasn't all mixed up.
No, that's what I'm saying. So we had this right here.
Yeah,
And now it
this is
became-
after they've added everything that came later.
Right,
And they
right.
just put it in there, I know
Bigger
that. I have
doesn't
copies of the
necessarily
old
mean
ones.
better.
Okay, yes.
So bigger doesn't necessarily mean better?
All right. Well, we will definitely work to make that clear for our meeting next week.
A real capital improvement
Absolutely.
plan.
Real capital, according to the definition we got this morning, yes.
And that means it probably shouldn't have assets less than $5,000 in it either.
Assets less than $5,000 will not be included on the capital improvement plan. I agree.
Next item.
Thank you, Mr. President. That brings us, so just so we're clear, we've talked about 9 and 10, and we'll clarify that at our regular meeting next week. Item number 11 is discussion and presentation of proposed recommendations for EIC local academic achievement policy revisions. Mr. President, members of the board, our Office of Curriculum and Instruction has been working on the implementation of House Bill 5, which is from the 83rd legislative session. It includes different endorsements, foundations, performance measurements, algebra expectations, and we've tried to blackline the changes that we're proposing to basically keep us in compliance with all of our House Bill 5 expectations. We recommend approval. Any comments or questions? May we have permission to proceed?
Yes.
Item number 12 is update on request for qualifications. Number 2014-013, selection of an architect for LISD Civic Center. Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Jose Pettis, who is not present tonight, mentioned at our last meeting that he wanted to have a conversation on this. As a matter of fact, if I remember it correctly, he wanted to have a meeting where we had possible action on this. You know, I've been talking to the board president. I'm not exactly sure what the will of the board is in terms of scheduling a special called meeting, in terms of how you want to proceed with this. But I just wanted to put it on our agenda for discussion, and whatever staff needs to do to address this agenda item, we're prepared to do. Mr. President?
I think if we do this, it'll also speed up the tennis courts.
I think I think the kids from Martin High School are losing out if we don't make a decision.
Let's do it.
Next item.
Item number 13 is a budget update. What we basically wanted to communicate is the following. The legislative session has ended. At this point now, the governor has 20 days to take all of the bills that have went through the appropriate House and Senate committee assignments and votes and consider which ones will become law. We have not heard of any special session. Our chief financial officer has already received a preliminary template from Lynn Moak, and it basically shows approximately $9 million is what we would be receiving from the state. In the interest of time, we just want you to know that our team is confident that we'll be able to bring a balanced budget, including ideas of how to address any type of shortfall we might have. We actually have several options with our budget. We feel very good about it. For the record, though, we already have approved $6 million in salary increases for next year. We received $9 million, that's for 2 years. Technically, you're supposed to cut that in half. Now, we don't have to. There's other ways to do that. And so I will just leave it right now that that's our budget update. The legislative session has ended. We're working on getting our template. We have a board. We're asking to have we're asking to have another workshop on June 18th, which is actually about 14 days away, a little over 14 days away, where we'll present more of our options to alleviate or to bring a balanced budget.
So, Dr. Nelson, did they fund all pre-K that's full day?
No, it's an application process. They only funded, I think I saw $128 million for 5 million children. So I'm not sure exactly what the process will be from TEA, but I know it'll be an application process. I think we'll be in a good situation, but we're not exactly sure how the application entitlement program will work.
180.
We just, sometimes it makes a difference how quick you are to submit yours.
Well, we definitely are already on top of that. We'll have an update next week.
So y'all look like they're ready to just enter as soon as it's open.
Yes.
Ms.
we're ready.
Ayala, you want to add something?
No, Dr. Nelson, I'm just here.
So I mean, for sake of 4.5, so we basically have to make up about a 1.8 on our budget, on our proposed
up?
increases.
Really, it just depends on how you look at it. We can spend the 9 million now.
I don't want, no.
Right, so we've got options, just let us
Okay.
bring them to you in writing so you can consider, but it's actually good news, and because of the outstanding leadership, I think we're going to be in a good situation and be able to bring the board options on how to make best use of our monies.
We have more money?
More than 2 years ago, Dr. Nelson?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor?
million more than 2 years ago?
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir.
How much was 2 years ago?
I want to say it
Each
was,
biennium, it depends. They
I think it was
increase the
8.
formulas. No,
or 7 or something like that.
It's 9 million per year, so it's actually $18 million. But you have to look at it from a cost. That's new money. When we adopt pay raises, those are permanent costs. So you have to reduce it from the second year of
Correct.
the biennium in order for you not to have cost overruns.
So we
good.
get, if we approve the raises this year, and in a couple of years, we only get 2 million, so we're in the hole to
Right.
continue to pay those pay raises and make up the
Well, if
difference.
they reduce funding, of course, we'll be in the red and we have to go back and cut.
All right.
So, got a lot of work to do still, but we're confident we'll be able to bring the board what they're expecting.
Yeah. Anything else, Dr. Nelson?
No, sir.
Okay, having no further business, we're
graduation.
adjourned.
So,